looking backwards. You got to be looking forwards and getting the job. So I thought we'd handled that much better tonight.
Saturday night, about an hour before kickoff, a lot of Charlotte FC fans might have been scratching their heads when the lineup had David Bingham starting in goal once again with reigning keeper of the year, Christian Kalina, bench. Callie sat the last match too, and after a week break between games, Dean Smith said that he slept on the decision and then went with his gut.
Excited about the change, obviously, and just trying to do my best to put in good performances and reward the opportunity. You prepare for every game the same and keep your mind right during the week. And as a goalie, you always have to be ready to play and step up when the moment comes.
Bings did well in the last game. I thought he was steady, and I just felt it was the right decision to make. It's always one of them, isn't it? You go away, Bings comes in, keeps a clean sheet, doesn't have much to do, and then you've got a decision to make whether you extend the break or not. And I decided to extend it.
College baseball comes from the state of North Carolina. Winning their 25th straight game. They haven't lost a game since April 22nd. Coastal Carolina got a huge win over Oregon State yesterday, led by pitcher Jacob Morrison. The ace retiring 16 straight batters, throwing 7 strikeouts, and did it all after hard work to get back to his game.
Envisioned dominance. I worked really hard in the offseason. I had the best staff around me to equip me to come back from injury and be this good. It's very fulfilling to be able to play at this high of a level, and I do not take it for granted the ability to even throw the baseball every day. I've always been a big strike thrower, and like my freshman year, I threw a ton of strikes, but I had a hard time keeping the ball out of the middle of the plate, and so that was a big thing, not only in my rehab last year, but even in freshman year development, like throwing pitches where I want. I think it's pretty awesome to do that type of stuff.
All right, Coastal is 1 win away from going to the College World Series final now. They're playing their next game on Wednesday.
I love this dynamic, by the way.
Yes, I do too.
So great to see. All right, speaking of dynamic, we got our dynamic Brad Panovich in the Live Impact News studio for weather at 6:30. 7 o'clock, I'll see you on the stream.
good Monday evening, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. We're tracking storms again this week. Unlike last week, these are actually moving a little bit as we're seeing a lot of heavy rain in parts of the area. We came out of a week of very heavy rain last week. We're going to be talking a lot about flash flooding because over the weekend we had a lot of flooding and a lot of flooding disasters, a lot of fatalities to talk about. But I want to focus on our local weather first, as we always do at the top of the show here. And we are tracking some pretty good thunderstorms. The one thing I will tell you right now is that we are seeing a lot of cloud to ground lightning with this cell. This is moving through northeastern Mecklenburg County, northwestern Cabarrus County. So think of Kannapolis, Concord, Harrisburg, Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson, Mooresville area. If you're watching us right now, you're probably hearing it coming down like crazy out there right now. I want to take a look at the lightning strikes because it's been a while since we've seen this much lightning, to be honest with you, from some of these storms. I actually have to look and see. I haven't used lightning data in so long. We'll query the lightning here in a second. Let me grab my lightning tracker. We're going to put a little box around this storm, and this will show you how many strikes we've had just in the last 15 minutes. So 92 cloud to ground lightning strikes, 70 of those negative, 22 positive. And remember, the polarity of the lightning strikes kind of tells us about how powerful they are and where they come from. But a positive strike typically comes from the top of the storm. It's 10 times longer lasting, 10 times the strength. So it can create a lot of damage. Usually the ones that we see cause fires and fatalities, it's going to be a positive lightning strike because it's coming from the top of the storm. But that'll give you a good idea just how much lightning is in this storm. And I know there's a lot of lightning because I'm hearing from a lot of folks out there that have swim meets or evening activities and they're sitting in a delay. And one of those places sitting in a delay right now is out at Charlotte Motor Speedway. They have their summer shootout series going on right now. And they have tonight's Media Mayhem night. Normally one of us would be up there racing a bus right now. And they race buses. So I don't know. Is Nick racing in that? I wonder.
Sounds fun. I think Danielle is.
Is she? Okay, maybe she's going to race in it. She just did a 6 with me. She's going to run out there. But I just saw they put out a tweet saying they're going to delay because they have lightning in the air, which is a good idea because look at all the lightning there. That line extends down into Charlotte. So from South Charlotte, we heard big thunder here just a second ago, and you could see a secondary cluster of lightning right around Fort Mill, TKK, the Carowinds area. Carowinds probably everybody's heading for shelter there as well. And then this is heading towards Pineville. So I'm going to widen this out, and I'm going to do a loop here just so you guys can see kind of where these storms are going. But these are going to be with us for, I'd say, till the top of the hour, and then they're going to push into areas of Union County, Anson, Stanley County, eventually the Sandhills. Now, there are a couple showers trying to develop on the backside. We'll see if these maintain themselves, but I think this could be a one and done for some folks in areas from Charlotte South because they're likely going to use up some of the energy in the atmosphere. I'll do a quick storm track on this just so for planning purposes. And again, make sure you're checking your watch and your clock to see what time it is where you are. Remember, there's a little delay when you're watching a streaming service. So I'm tracking this at 6:33, 34 right now, coming up here in a second. So Kannapolis pretty much on you right now. Concord around 6:41. Wesley Chapel around 6:50. Then Waxhaw, Weddington, Mineral Springs, Unionville, Monroe, closer to about 7 o'clock or so. And then Albemarle, if it holds together, it'll be out in Albemarle probably closer to 7:40, 7:45 or so. Quick look at some of the cameras. I'm going to show a different camera here as well. We had a pretty good view up at Lake Norman. Let's see if it loads. You could see we had some rain up there. It looks like it's starting to let up a little bit right there around the Lake Norman area. Got some video sent in from Cornelius. Viewer sent this in just a second ago. I was able to get in our show at 6 o'clock, so we'll show you at 6:30. So this was when the height of the storm was coming through the Cornelius area. And look how heavy that rain is. That's pretty much a gully washer right there, really producing a lot of heavy rain. Not good cloud to ground lightning strike there as well. Didn't see a lot of wind, so I'm not seeing the trees moving around there. So that's a good sign that this was just basically all rainfall. So that was when the storm was moving through the Cornelius area earlier this evening, closer to about just before 6 o'clock or so. So let's widen this back out again and kind of show the overall view because we do have other weather going on in the Carolinas. We've had a couple severe thunderstorms warning, but up in the Greensboro area, flash flood warning currently in effect for the Greensboro area. That's for Guilford County. That's until 8:15. Now, this is an area tonight we were really concerned about because this area got clobbered yesterday and over the weekend. We saw a lot of heavy rain basically on the Interstate 40 corridor between Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem, all the way over to the Raleigh area. In fact, let me turn on all of the radars here so we can get a good idea. Now we have all the radars back online. The terminal Doppler radar finally came back online today, which was nice to see.
Best news I saw all day.
Yes, so that's great to see that. So these showers and storms extend into the Raleigh area. There was still a flood warning, believe it or not, for the Greenville area. We'll zoom in on that because you can see that looks to be a river flood warning right now. And a lot of that, we're going to show you some video from over in that area and talk about the Greenville area here in a second. But they got clobbered with heavy rain yesterday. I was just looking at some of the totals over there, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of rain across most of Greenville, North Carolina. And they had flash flood warnings yesterday in many locations. So if we widen the view out even further, we'll kind of show you why we're seeing all this heavy rain. We've got this stalled front draped across the southeast, and you can see there's rain in Alabama, Mississippi, up into Tennessee, Kentucky, even into parts of West Virginia. And really what's been driving a lot of this flash flooding has been something we refer to as precipitable water. It's basically how much moisture is in the atmosphere, not just at the ground where we are, but all the way to the top of the atmosphere. So if you were to squeeze it all out, we get a total. And in this case today, it's been like close to 2 inches, which is pretty high. That's like 180 to 200% of normal. So it's about twice as much moisture as we normally have in the atmosphere. At some points, we've seen it close to 300% of normal. And this not only been here, it's been extending all the way up into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. But if you want some good news, this is a good news, bad news scenario. So I'm just going to set this up right now because the rain chances will actually go down here the next couple of days. But we're going to trade off the rain and clouds for some crazy, ridiculous heat. I mean, we're talking some silly heat that's going to be heading our way as we go later this week. So let's see the rain, though, first. We'll show you Futurecast this evening. So everybody trying to plan for swim meets out there, I'm getting a bunch of texts from my wife. She's waiting for a swim meet, so they're on hold for lightning. So I can attest a lot of people are waiting this storm out. If you wait till probably 7:30, it'll be gone. And you can see tomorrow, we'll go into the afternoon. This is 5 o'clock tomorrow, so probably our show tomorrow, we're going to have much quieter local weather. We're not going to have nearly as many showers and storms, but the trade-off, as I mentioned, that means more sunshine. And with more sunshine, there's going to be more heat. And we're not losing any of the humidity at the surface. So even though we talked about the atmosphere drying out above our heads, remember, the past week we've had several inches, in some cases 5-6 inches of rain. That's all in the soil. It's going into the plants. So when we see this heat build, the low-level moisture is going to stay high. We're going to see very high dew points kind of persisting through the week. And what's happening is the heat dome, which is usually this ridge of high pressure is parked off the East Coast. It was pumping in the moisture. So it's going to start drifting west, and it's going to move over the eastern part of the country. And this heat dome, once it sets up late this week, it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter to the point this thing settles in over the Northeast and kind of the mid-Atlantic and right over us and sets the stage for dangerous heat indices that will be around 100 to 105. Some areas could be 110. So we are already starting to track some of those heat impacts for later this week. And we'll talk more about this coming up at the end of the show, some safety tips. But just to give you kind of a precursor and kind of a heads up, heat is going to become the big issue. You're going to say, thank goodness, Brad, the rain is moving out of the Carolinas. We're getting away from that, but we're going to see the heat build. And you can see major impacts from heat on Wednesday, and that's why we want you to stay weather alert and stay weather aware on Wednesday, because for the first time this season, we're probably going to see most of the afternoon hours with heat indices above 100 to 105. In fact, I'll show you the forecast heat indices this week, at least the next 5 days. And I wish I could tell you that this will be the only 5 days we have to worry about. It won't. It gets worse than this. We got 101 on Tuesday, 102 on Wednesday, 103 on Thursday. Friday might be a slightly drier day, so down to 97, but then back on Saturday, 102. And like I said, once this heat builds in, it's going to be over most areas of the eastern part of the country. Look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlooks. You can see the location of that heat dome setting up shop over the Ohio Valley, the mid-Atlantic, up into areas close to us, including the Carolinas. We're going to be way above. Now, I can already hear my social media comments, people saying it's summer, it's supposed to be hot, right? This is above normal. This is not normal. Heat's about 87, 88. We're looking at temperatures here, low to mid 90s with the feel like readings above 100. Remember your body temperature, it should be about 98.6, right? Anytime the air temperature or feel like readings get above 98.6, you need some help cooling your body down. You either need more moisture in the form of drinking more water, you need a fan, you need air conditioning, more breaks. Your body just doesn't do well once it sees the air temperature, or in this case, the feel like reading get above, basically 98.6. So let's look at the 7-day forecast first. The 7-day forecast is not great, guys. I say not great. If you like hot weather, you probably love that. So the 7-day forecast there, look at that, low to mid 90s, 93, 93, 93, and that doesn't take into account the feel like readings, which I put some of them on there. That's the max feel like readings I expect most of those days. And just look at this stretch. We'll go 10 days into the future, and even into next week, we're talking, basically from tomorrow through the 26th, low to mid 90s. So we're kind of getting into the dog days of summer here a little bit early. Normally about July is when things crank up. We're getting there a couple weeks early. And the good news here is it will not rain as much, but that's, like I said, it's a trade-off. We will see less in the form of rain and clouds, and we'll end up getting a whole lot more in the way of heat and humidity. And remember, the 21st is the summer solstice. So coming up, that is the longest daylight of the year. So it's hot, and you're going to have the maximum number of incoming solar radiation. You can get 14 hours and 32 minutes, I believe. So that's kind of the local weather. But let's focus back on some national weather, which does kind of include us, to be honest with you, because in the last week, we have seen a tremendous amount of flash flooding. We have seen creeks and streams here in the Charlotte area at record levels. We saw one night last week, I think it was Thursday night, if my time is correct, we saw about 4 to 6 inches of rain very close to the studio here. We saw flooding in parts of Texas, but over the weekend we saw devastating flooding in parts of West Virginia. And some of these images and pictures bring back some really horrible memories of what happened with Helene in our mountains. But the setup was very similar. Too much rain in a short period of time in some of these mountainous areas, especially some of these hollers. So take a look at some of the video from West Virginia that shows the devastation that occurred just yesterday from flash flooding.
Now here in West Virginia, the story really is in the images of this deadly flash flood. Take a look right behind me here. Look at this creek. Some of these cars washing away into it. Some of them still partially submerged, some of them upside down, and some of them just battered by the force of this water. That water also taking a toll on several homes in this region. And that's not all. Several roadways also still closed. The road buckling under the weight of the water. Now, West Virginia's governor saying the top priority right now is to find anyone that is missing and to bring them back to safety as quickly as possible. Now, unfortunately, more rain does appear to be in the forecast, which could complicate search rescues that are set to begin a little bit later today. Now, the community is rallying behind anyone that is impacted. Apart from tetanus shots, they're also giving away bottled water and food. A number of businesses in the area are also going to have a lengthy cleanup, as many roadways are covered in pretty thick mud right now. This is unprecedented, according to officials. They haven't seen flooding like this in several years. Their priority right now is getting things cleaned up as quickly as possible, getting power restored in areas where the power did go out, and again, finding anyone that was impacted and bringing them back to safety. Back to you.
They had essentially what amounted to a stationary thunderstorm, and the area he was reporting from is in Ohio County, which is right here. And you can see the total 48-hour rainfall total, 3.78 inches of rain. And I believe, looking at when that fell, most of that fell in about a 35-minute time period. So they had about 3 to 4 inches of rain in less than 45 minutes. And that's a very mountainous part of West Virginia. It's in the Panhandle. It's sandwiched between Ohio and Pennsylvania, very close to Pittsburgh and Youngstown. And you can see some of the terrain here. This holler right here, that water gets funneled down into those narrow canyons and valleys, and it becomes a deluge. So It created just so much flooding in a short period of time and brought debris with it. And as we've seen in a lot of these storms, when you get the debris on top of that, it causes additional flooding. The pictures are crazy, and most of the people that are getting injured or killed in this flash flooding are in vehicles. Their car is getting washed off the road. And so that's why we always say turn around, don't drown. The reason we tell you that is this is what we see in most of these examples. You can see the cars here. Most of these were washed off bridges and roads. And once you get in that current, there's not much you can do. Hopefully you get into a tree and can get out of your vehicle. But we saw a very similar situation happen in San Antonio with fatalities where cars were literally washed off the bridge as they're driving. So when you're driving and you see water on the road, you might think, hey, it's only a couple inches deep or maybe a foot deep, 6 inches. It doesn't take much. We know a vehicle up to a foot of water can take away pretty much any vehicle. 6 inches of water can sweep you off your feet. So it's just better not to drive into water at all. And on top of that, like you're seeing in a lot of these images from West Virginia, some cases the road and bridge aren't even there. So it might look like a puddle, and then you drive in and realize that's 10 or 20 feet deep because the road's been scoured out or the bridge is completely gone. I mean, when you see these images, just unfortunately reminds me a lot of some of the creeks and streams we saw during Helene. And to think this happened just 24 hours ago and the water's down. Look at the movement of that pavement. The power of water is just undefeated. It's amazing when you look at what water can do. It is one of the most powerful forces in nature. And of all the things that can happen, man, water damage is some of the worst, and it's the hardest to recover from. So we saw that in West Virginia, but we saw some of that in parts of North Carolina as well. I believe it was yesterday, James. Was that yesterday? I
think it was just yesterday we were seeing those flash flood warnings.
So yeah, it
out.
was Sunday. It was Father's Day Sunday. I saw 3 flash flood warnings together from around Rocky Mount to Greenville. And I'm going to zoom in on the map here and just show you. Look at the totals around Greenville, North Carolina. Look at that: 4.86, 5.14, 5.59, and then 5.05. That all fell yesterday with some stationary storms. And the pictures out of there were almost as devastating as what we saw in West Virginia. By the way, the West Virginia, it was a flash flood emergency. Not sure if they ever upgraded to flash flood emergency in Greenville, but usually when you have water rescues like you're seeing in some of these images, that's usually going to be when we're going to see a flash flood emergency.
The highest I recall seeing in Greenville was considerable. Which is that second tier.
Yeah, so right there in the middle. So usually got to get to next level for the WIAs to be activated, which is usually catastrophic or just destructive. But 4 to 5 inches of rain anywhere is going to cause flooding, and this is part of the problem. This week and last week we've seen these images across all of the Carolinas. So that's why even like mundane little pop-up storms like we're seeing today are always something I watch, because if they move over these same areas that were hit by flooding, you could see flash flooding occur with almost less rain with little or no warning. So it doesn't take nearly as much to cause flooding. But just look at some of the totals we've seen in the last 48 hours. Around the Charlotte area, we've seen a lot less. Unlike last week when we had our ridiculous amount of rain off of Tyvola at the USGS office, we saw some ridiculous amount of like almost 6 inches in 24 hours, but it was 4.6 inches in 90 minutes. And we saw flooding all across South Boulevard, the Little Sugar Creek. I think 3 separate gauges we had actually topped out at all-time record crests. I'm surprised we didn't have more flooding, to be honest with you. It kind of tells you how important our greenway system is. And we talked about this last Friday, that the greenways did their job. They're supposed to flood. We want the water to go to the greenways and not into your home. So the fact that the greenways were completely flooded, not great if you're trying to go biking or running the next day, but that is actually what we want to see in many of those cases, that you want to see the water go there and flood where there's nobody, and hopefully that moves out. So James, let's go back to the radar and kind of see what these storms are doing out there, because we still have some active weather, and we haven't seen them getting stronger, which is a good sign, but they have moved out of Charlotte. They're moving quickly, so that's the good sign. that storm has actually weakened quite a bit. That was over northern Mecklenburg County. It looked pretty ominous early, but now we see it kind of falling apart a little bit. I'm going to track this just so we can get an idea on the storm. I'm going to put another storm track on this whole line. So it's moving east at 35 miles per hour. So this is going to be an early heads up for folks in Union County, heading into Stanley, Anson, and eventually Richmond County. You see Wingate around 716, Marshville around 722, Wadesboro, if it holds together, which it probably will at least as rain, around 7:45 this evening. So I expect that to move through fairly quickly, and once it gets over there, it's probably going to be weaker than it was before. Now, to the back side of that, I was wondering if we were going to see another line develop behind that system, but let me look and see if that's so. Yeah, we got a couple trying to get going again. So western York County, around Spratt there over in Cherokee and Union County, South Carolina. So that's Spratt's in Cherokee County, Surratt, and Lockhart, which is down there towards Union County. Those are moving into western parts of York. So we might see some additional storms moving in. I'm kind of curious to see what our Dallas camera looks like now. It had a good view of the back side of these storms. I'm going to bring it up here real quick because we had to aim back towards. So that's Spencer Mountain in the foreground there. Still looks pretty ominous off in the distance. Charlotte is off to the left there behind those wires. That's our guy wires. But looking into Union County, basically we're looking towards Lake Wiley, the airport, that general area. You can see those pop-up storms kind of sitting there. Those clouds are trying to billow back up. So we're still tracking heavy rain, even though we saw most of the heavy rain last week confined to a small area of South Charlotte. Now we're starting to see the rain kind of spread out a little bit and move through the area. So I know a lot of folks are sick of the rain. That's all I heard all weekend was everybody, hey, when's
my
the
garden's
rain?
not. My garden's
I
very
know.
happy.
This is the best my grass has looked in mid-June in probably 5 or 6 years. It's been amazing. So, but the thing is, too, I was showing, I think I shared earlier, the precipitable water, but I was going to say there's some parts that did not get any rain in the last 30 days.
Very hit or miss.
Yeah, so it's not everywhere. It's kind of hit or miss. Now, what I was going to show you was, take my laptop here for a second. So this is the European data showing those precipitable water values. And you see the areas in green and blue. That means the water in the atmosphere is way above normal for this time of year. And those numbers are percentages. So look up towards Pittsburgh, 173% of normal. I wanted to show you because it's over us now, but as we go towards the end of the week, you actually start to see it kind of dry out a little bit. And when we say dry out, I don't want people to think the humidity's going away because it's not going anywhere. In fact, the one thing we're going to see is probably really high dew point air sticking around. But what we're losing is the moisture above the ground. The saturation of the atmosphere. If you think unfortunately, everything is very weather centric down here at the ground where we are. But in the atmosphere, we think about the whole atmosphere in 3D. So it's from the ground up to the top of the troposphere, basically the stratosphere. The air above our heads is really important to what happens here at the ground. Even though it's going to stay super humid here, above our heads it's going to start drying out. So that's why we don't have the heavy rain chances going in to next week. But we're potentially going to see some of the hottest, most humid weather of the season because of that. Now, rainfall totals, these are 48-hour totals on the map. I'm kind of widening out. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to filter out some of the ones just to show you that the heaviest totals. So what I'm going to do is filter out the low ones. We'll filter out everything less than an inch and a half, just to give you an idea who's got the last 24 hours. There we go. So those are all the totals over an inch and a half. So you can kind of see that corridor that's been basically Interstate 40. And so today we had this excessive rainfall outlook that showed this area of greatest concern. So these are the areas we're going to have to watch tonight into tomorrow. If we see additional rainfall in the area, we could potentially see more flooding in those areas that have been saturated by the previous rain that has fallen in those areas. So some of those totals, again, 4 or 5 inches. And folks, this is a 48-hour total. This isn't just like a week or a month. And put in perspective, our average rainfall in a month in Charlotte in the summer is like 3.5, 4 inches.
I was just going to ask you, Brad, how does this relate to quote unquote normal?
That's the tough part is because, I'll hear it from everybody. They're going to say, I got 4 inches of rain yesterday. I don't need rain again. Here's the thing. In a week from now, you're going to need rain again, because the thing about rainfall, we don't have storage. Like, the plants use it, and then once it's gone, it's gone. So one of the weird things about growing plants, if you have a garden, you know this, or a lawn, you need an inch of rain per week to keep everything growing. You can't get 4 inches 1 week and then go 3 weeks with no rain and expect things to be fine. You'd love to get the 1 inch a week kind of spaced out. I always equate it to eating. I know everything relates back to eating sometimes, but you know, it's like if you're starving and you have one big meal and then you don't eat for 3 weeks, it doesn't mean that meal you ate, that big meal is going to last you 3 weeks. You got to always sustain yourself. So that's kind of the way rain works, you know? It's kind of weird that way. I mean, people, you know, they'll say they have mud in their yard and they don't want to see rain again, but in the summertime, right now in particular, I just said the longest daylight of the year, it does not take very long for the ground to dry out. And remember, your plants, your lawn is all using this moisture. So it's using it like crazy. In the next week, if it didn't rain at all, your yard would be completely dry and everything would be dried out.
Doubling down on your food analogy, I guess what you're saying is moderation is key, right? Because when we look at these pictures from Greenville, it's too much too quickly.
I mean, it's a great example, right? You got too much too quickly, it causes flooding. You know, and that water, unfortunately, you know, you get it that much. In some cases, the plants can't use it. That's like kind of a waste of water. You almost wish you could like put it in a reservoir, and that's why reservoirs are so great. You know, we have all these great, you know, dams and reservoirs here. That's what you try to do, store the water for later. So when you don't have rain, you can use it. In this case, when it's just running off, it's not going to anything. So in a place like Greenville, which is pretty flat out there, you're already close to the river, very flash flood prone area. Unfortunately, they see a lot of flooding in tropical systems. So for them to see that much rain through a pop-up storm is kind of unique to see that happen. So again, the storms this evening, we're going to keep a close eye on them. I think we're going to be okay. I know Vanessa's coming up here in about 2 minutes. We might do a quick update with her on these storms as they move through. The shocking thing is we have not seen any severe storms in our area. We have not seen any flash flood warnings. But I will tell you, the amount of lightning has been ridiculous. So we have seen the lightning be off the charts. And remember, there's no warning system for lightning. Remember, lightning in of itself is dangerous. So when thunder roars, go indoors. So don't take any chances. Wait 30 minutes until after that last lightning strike, and then bail and get out of there. So don't go anywhere. 2 minutes from now, we're going to continue Impact News here. We'll have an update on the weather. Vanessa will join us coming up after the break.